Like most things in India, language is a complicated subject. There are clashing opinions, ignorance, and misunderstanding. But one thing that is widely understood is the importance of language. Language is the way you can bond with others, express your feelings, sing your songs, and celebrate your literature. Official recognition of a language means state patronage and extra resources. It means that all-important job. In other words, language is power. The word. In the Indian subcontinent, there are 5 language families, with the largest number belonging to the Indo-Aryan group. About 75% of the Indian people speak Indo-Aryan languages. These languages are predominant in the northern parts of the subcontinent. Some of these are Hindi, Bengali, Punjabi, Marathi, Gujarati, Urdu, Odia, Assamese, Kashmiri, Sindhi, Maithili. The Indo-Aryan family, in turn, is part of an international language family called Indo-European. From ancient times, people have spoken Indo-European languages, not only on the Indian subcontinent, but in Europe, Afghanistan, Iran, and parts of Western Asia. The common link between the Indo-Aryan and European languages, which was already known, was explored in the 18th century by Sir William Jones, a judge of the Supreme Court, and founder of the Asiatic Society in Kolkata. Jones's systematic explorations into the connections between the classical languages, Sanskrit from India and Latin and Greek from Europe, showed that they had common roots, and therefore most probably a common mother language. This language was named Proto-Indo-European, and linguists have been working at reconstructing it. Jones found many examples of similar words from different parts of the world. Take is. In Sanskrit, it is asti, Latin est, Greek esti, Persian ast, English is, German ist. Although there are claims that the home of Proto-Indo-European was in India, the more accepted opinion among scholars is that it was in Central Asia, and its speakers migrated to the Indian subcontinent over many centuries, starting before 1500 BC. Their arrival in groups in different periods resulted in earlier arrivals being dispersed to other parts of the country. Vedic Sanskrit, or the language of the ancient scriptures, the Vedas, is considered to be the oldest language of the Indo-Aryan branch. Many great works of literature and religion, epics and scriptures were composed in Sanskrit, a classical language used by the Hindus for most of their religious rites. Professor Subba Rao is from the Department of Linguistics, Delhi University.
Vedic Sanskrit emerged as a language in course of time after these Aryans came to India, and it took them some time, and all the Vedic Sanskrit has been codified by a grammarian called Panini in 5th century BC, which proves that the language must have existed much earlier than Panini.
The brilliant grammarian Panini made thousands of grammar rules for spoken Sanskrit in his classic Ashtadhyayi. The Ashtadhyayi has been called one of the greatest monuments of human intelligence. Remarkable as it is, for that very early period, Panini mentions as many as 10 grammarians who had worked before him on Sanskrit. Locally, however, Indo-Aryan changed freely in different regions, as most living languages do. They evolved into what is known as Prakrit, then into Apabhramsa. One of the most important languages to develop was Pali, which was used to write the vast Theravada literature of Buddhism initially associated with Sri Lanka. Pali disappeared from most parts of India, but the Buddhists retained the language till today for religious expression. Around 1000 AD, the Upper Bhramsa began to take the shape of the modern Indo-Aryan languages of India. The second largest language family in India is Dravidian, of which Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu and Kannada are the most widely spoken. About 23% of Indians speak Dravidian languages. We don't know for certain if Dravidian languages earlier existed outside India. But today, these languages are mostly spoken in southern India. Pockets of Dravidian speakers are still found in Baluchistan in Pakistan, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, surrounded by a sea of other language speakers. This could indicate the migration of Dravidian speakers southwards, yet leaving behind small pockets. The most ancient language of the Dravidian family is Tamil, a classical language like Sanskrit. Correspondingly to Panini, there was a Tamil grammarian called Tolkappiyar, who wrote the grammar of Tamil, which is called Tolkappiyam. There is some debate over Tolkappiyar's dates, but scholars place him between the 1st century BC and the 2nd century AD.
There have been a lot of intermixture and inter-exchange between the languages of the Aryan group and the languages of the Dravidian group, and this can be best seen from the work done by Emino, which has listed all those exchanges. But more importantly, when Tamil got standardized in the modern era, particularly after 10th century AD, we have tremendous influence of Sanskrit which was visible in Tamil.
It is evident that there have been cross-cultural exchanges since ancient times, and Indo-Aryan languages and trends were also influenced by Dravidian.
You will find a number of words in Sanskrit, in the Vedas, borrowed from Dravidian. For example, the word for peacock, Mayura, the word for fish, Meena, the word for pot, Kunda. These are the words which have Dravidian origin. Then the next question is, are there any words from Sanskrit into Dravidian languages? There are many, because Sanskrit is and was the language of religion, as a result of which number of words have come into being into all Dravidian languages, though there is a kind of resistance in Tamil to take more borrowed words from Sanskrit.
The number of common words between the two classical languages goes into the thousands. The documentation of these is incomplete. Dravidian languages also influence the Sanskrit sound system.
These are the sounds what we call the retroflex, or traditionally called the Murdhanya sounds, ta, tha, da, dha, na. These are the sounds which did not exist in Sanskrit before they came into contact with Dravidians. These are the sounds that were borrowed.
Retroflex sounds are not there in Indo-European languages outside India. They have therefore almost surely come from contact with Dravidian.
You find vocabulary which is called reduplication. That is, the noun is repeated. For example, ghar ghar mein, in each house in Hindi, gali gali mein, in each street, or for example, dheere dheere, slowly, ahiste ahiste. This type of construction is borrowed from Dravidian languages into Sanskrit and consequently into other Indo-Aryan languages.
पठतु बालकः बालकः गृहं गच्छति एकं वाक्यं करोतु बालकः बालकः मन्दिरं गच्छति समीचीनम्.
Sanskrit had no fixed word order and adopted the Dravidian structure of placing the verb in the last position. This now holds true of all Indian languages, making translation comparatively simple. With the vibrant two-way traffic, Sanskrit became equally sacred to Dravidian speakers. This cross-cultural exchange permeated to other areas. Carnatic music, for example, especially when sung in Telugu, uses Sanskritic words extensively. In fact, a high standard of scholarship has been attained by southern scholars. Another cultural commonality is in the use of kinship terms. Take, for instance, aunt.
You have various words. In Hindi, you have chachi, you have buva, you have mami, and in Telugu, you have atta, you have pinni, etc.
These variations describe exact relationships, such as a father's younger brother's wife or his sister. In English, an Indo-European language, there is just one word, aunt. Yet Tamil and Hindi do not belong to the same language family, while English and Hindi do. So we find that Indians of all groups place greater importance on family ties, and there are many more such cultural links. The third language family in India is also part of an international family called Austroasiatic or Austric. The Munda languages spoken in central and eastern India belong to this family. Most of these people are Adivasis or tribals, such as those who speak Santali, Mundari and Ho, among others. The languages of Ladakh, Sikkim, Himachal Pradesh and the northeastern states of India belong to the fourth family, Tibeto-Burman. These in turn are part of the second largest international family, Sino-Tibetan, of which Chinese is a member. In the Sea of Tibeto-Burman in the northeast of India are the Khasis of Meghalaya who speak an Austric language, perhaps indicating more migratory patterns, just like the islands of Dravidian speakers in other parts of India. And far away in the Nicobar Islands are the Nicobarese, who speak an Austric language as well. The fifth language family is Andamanese, spoken in the Andaman Islands by only a few hundred people. This language family is on the verge of extinction as settlers from other parts of India overwhelm the islands. These last three language families, Munda, Tibeto-Burman and Andamanese, account for just 2% of the population. Many questions remain to be answered on the language families of India, among them their origins and influences. But something much more significant has emerged, which is that all these languages have existed for many centuries inside India, interacting and growing together side by side, and that they now share more with each other than with their original international families. Languages initially did not take written form. This would happen only when scripts were invented. Even today there are languages without a script. The first evidence of writing in India comes from one of the earliest civilizations in the world, the Indus Valley Civilization, which matured between 2700 and 1700 BC. Airavatham Mahadevan has been studying the Indus script for decades and is an internationally acknowledged expert on the subject.
The most remarkable thing about the Indus civilization is that it was literate. The Indus seals have attracted universal attention for their beauty and clarity. Thousands of seals have been found which carry short messages in a pictographic script. By counting the letters, scholars have arrived at a figure of approximately 400 to 450 different characters which make the Indus script. Here is a man carrying two weights strung from his shoulders, and here you find a man with a bow and arrow. There are fish symbols, there are birds, and there are strokes for numbers 1, 2, 3 and so on. But there are also more abstract symbols that you see on this page, and there is no unanimity of view of what they represent.
It is a similar story with ancient Egyptian writing. At one time, no one could decipher the scripts of ancient Egypt. Then, in the 18th century, soldiers from Napoleon's army found the Rosetta Stone. It had a translation of the Egyptian scripts into Greek. Using the known Greek script as the key, scholars were finally able to decipher the Egyptian hieroglyphic and demotic scripts. We are waiting for an Indian version of the Rosetta Stone or some bilingual sample to unlock the secrets of the Indus script.
Scholars have been attempting to decipher the script. Several techniques have been employed. The computer has been harnessed in the effort. There have been scholars in India and in Europe and in America and in Russia who have tried to decipher the script, and several dozens of decipherments have been published, but not one of them has received universal acceptance.
Skeptics have occasionally said the Indus symbols are not writing in the acceptable sense.
Those of us who have labored for years on the making of a concordance, we know that the Indus script has too many regularities, too many fixed sequences, and which tie them to a language. We may not be able to read the script, but we do know it is a linguistic representation.
The seals could have been used to signify authority or for trading purposes. Some scholars say the script may have been an early form of Dravidian, others that it was a form of Indo-Aryan, but there is no convincing evidence. All we know with some certainty is that the signs were written from right to left and that there was a system of writing numbers.
We find writing like this from the right edge, and this space is left vacant. Obviously, the scribe would not have begun in the middle and gone to the edge. Now, this shows this must have been written from right to left. This is one observation. Another observation is the script for the scribe was careless. He did not measure out the space properly. So, as he proceeded writing, he had to compress his letters to finish within this edge. So, normal letters here, compressed letters here show he must have written from right to left. One of the few things we know for certain about the Indus script is how they wrote their numbers. Very simply, they wrote with strokes 1, 2, 3, 4. But when they came to 10, they used a different system. 10, 20, 30, and so on.
Writing numbers probably came earlier than writing words. It is widely accepted that the international numeral system used globally today came from India. In the 7th century AD, Indian scholars made the amazing contributions of the negative numbers and zero. This becomes significant when you learn that European mathematicians were struggling to cope without the zero till the 15th century. The comprehensive Indian system, consisting of 10 numbers with the revolutionary zero, was transmitted to the West from India via the Arabs. The Arabs too were keen mathematicians who were interacting with Indian scholars. Until then, the rest of the world used clumsy signs such as this, the Roman 432, and the 0 was incorporated, so this becomes 330. The next script to be discovered in India was Brahmi. There is a gap of around 1000 to 1500 years between the disappearance of the Indus script and the earliest evidence of Brahmi, which dates to the 6th century BC. The developed form of Brahmi is found from about 240 BC during the rule of the great Mauryan emperor Ashoka. Ashoka used rocks, pillars and caves for his famous edicts. There are also 2 Ashokan inscriptions in today's Pakistan in another ancient script, Kharoshthi. Ashoka's edicts spread the Buddhist view of life and provide us with valuable information about his rule. James Prinsep, who rose to be head of the mint at Kolkata, must be credited with the massive labor of decoding the Brahmi script, working backwards from existing modern Indian scripts and Indo-Greek coins. Prinsep had started decoding Kharoshthi when he died, they say, because of his strenuous labors on these scripts. One thing we must remember is that Brahmi is not a language. It is a script, just as Devanagari is not a language. It is the script for Sanskrit, Hindi, Marathi, etc. Therefore, many languages can be written in the same script, but the script is only the vehicle of a language and not the language in itself. Where did the Brahmi script come from? Some scholars believe those who created the Brahmi script used ideas from older scripts such as Aramaic and the very ancient and path-breaking cuneiform of Sumeria, where Iraq is today. Others believe the Indians invented their own script without any outside influence. The fact remains that Brahmi has unique Indian features which are today present in all Indian scripts. Brahmi outlasted Kharoshthi. It came to be written from left to right from Ashokan times. From Tamil and Telugu to Hindi to Gujarati, even Tibetan, all the language scripts of the region are based on Brahmi. This shop in Ooty, Tamil Nadu, gives us an idea of the underlying similarities and connections. The letter K in Tamil has a striking similarity to the K in Hindi. If we look at the letter K in the original Brahmi, we're able to understand the similarities between Indian scripts and the way they have evolved over time. As Brahmi spread to different parts of the country, one branch became rounded and the other remained linear. The theory is that the scripts of southern India and Orissa became rounded because of the iron stylus and palm leaf. If a straight line is written on palm leaf, the leaf splits. So the natural result was a curved or rounded style. The scripts of all the Indian languages kept changing and took their current form about 500 to 1000 years ago. Brahmi is in fact one of the most influential scripts of the world. The script of the Myanmarese, like the scripts of Sri Lanka, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos and others, are all derived from the rounded southern Indian and Oriya scripts through cultural, trading and political links. The only scripts in India which are not based on Brahmi and have a foreign origin are Nastaliq, used for Urdu, Sindhi and Kashmiri, and the Roman script used for English. After independence, some leaders thought we should reduce to a single script, like the International Roman script, in order to make understanding each other simpler. The idea never took off. Instead, regional aspirations have added more scripts. In Manipur, where the Bengali script predominates, today the old Manipuri script has been revived and recognized. Early in the 20th century, Raghunath Murmu invented a script, Old Chiki, for the Santhalis of Jharkhand. Though the Santhalis used Devanagari and Bengali scripts, Murmu felt they needed their very own. More recently, Nagas, Khasis, Mizos and others have begun using the Roman script for their languages, which earlier had no script. Some scholars feel that writing vanished from India during the centuries between the Indus script and Brahmi. Does that mean the Buddha in 500 BC was illiterate? Could the kingdoms and republics of the time have existed without writing? If indeed there was writing in that interval, the materials used, such as bark and cloth, would have been perishable and would not have lasted. Ashoka's inscriptions lasted because they were carved into rock and stone, a tradition borrowed from Persia. Whether or not writing was used in India throughout history, the country has always had a strong oral tradition. Literature and religious works like the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and even medical and scientific works were kept alive for centuries through memory and passed on by word of mouth. A lot of literature was composed in poetry. Was this to make memorizing easy? Even after writing appeared, there was a belief that memory was more reliable than the written word. Perceptions were very different in those early days. Almost 40% of the people in India are illiterate today. Maybe this is connected to the old and strong oral tradition. Maybe only a few people knew how to read and write in ancient times. The literate few may have wanted to keep their knowledge a monopoly. Certainly in the Middle Ages and as late as the 19th century, in some regions, Shudras or Dalits, considered the lowest castes, and women were not allowed to read the Vedas. But times have changed. Today, students from both genders and all walks of life throng the schools and colleges, challenging the old ideas. After independence, Dr. Ambedkar chaired the drafting committee for the Constitution of India. Language was one of the topics under discussion. After much debate, the committee selected 15 national languages. In 1992, 32 years later, Manipuri, Konkani and Nepali were added to the list, making 18. And in December 2003, 4 more languages were added: Bodo, Santhali, Maithili and Dogri. About 98% of Indians speak these languages. It is likely that soon most languages spoken by a viable number will be accepted. The remaining 2% of the population, some 20 million people, speak more than 100 unrecognized languages. One of the criteria for even being considered is that there should be a minimum of 10,000 speakers. Many are fighting for this recognition. When there are too few speakers, sometimes as little as 2 or 5, a language will die out altogether. Indians often have to learn more than one language to communicate, especially in remote areas. In Nagaland, each tribe speaks a different language. To communicate with each other, the majority of Nagas speak Nagamese, a common lingua franca closest to Assamese and Bengali. But the official language of the state is English, though very few people understand it. But are these dialects or languages? Such distinctions are far from clear. Sir George Grierson's well-known Linguistic Survey of India, written in the early 20th century, identified 179 languages and 544 dialects. The 1961 Census Report of India listed 1652 mother tongues. The 1981 census listed about 200. 1991 census, 114 languages and 216 mother tongues. It looks as if the exact number of the difference between language and dialect may never be clear.
Of this total number of languages or mother tongues, what we see is only about 22 now in the Indian Constitution, in the 8th schedule. But 24 of them are recognized in the Sahitya Academy for awards. 35 of languages are such that in which about 3,900 newspapers are published. 69 to 72 of them are used in the school network, and 146 of them are used in the radio network. So there's a lot of this push that each language is trying to give it to itself to occupy one of those functional slots.
Before independence, British-administered India was divided into large provinces and over 500 princely states. With the partition of India and the creation of Pakistan, the political map changed. The internal borders of India were redrawn mostly on the basis of language. Madras state was divided between Tamil-speaking areas, now Tamil Nadu, and Telugu-speaking areas, now Andhra Pradesh. There were violent demonstrations, and Potti Sri Ramalu, a prominent Telugu, went on hunger strike in demand for a separate Telugu state. It was finally accepted by the centre after Sri Ramalu's fast ended in death. Bombay state was divided into Maharashtra and Gujarat. Punjab was split into three: Punjab, Haryana and Himachal Pradesh. Violence accompanied many of these divisions. Apart from national languages, there was the question of an official language for independent India. The subject was and is heavily controversial. In 1950, after a series of debates, when India adopted a constitution, Hindi was selected as the official language of the country. Approximately 40% of Indians are native speakers of some form of Hindi. Hindi is also the third most spoken language in the world after Chinese and English. But there is a major contradiction. Although the largest minority, 40%, are native speakers of Hindi, the majority, 60%, are not. The Constituent Assembly had decided that English would be used for government work along with Hindi for a bridging period of 15 years and then replaced completely. Alas, the history of Hindi in modern India was to be a violent one. Before 1965, when Hindi was to replace English, widespread protests began. Some of the protesters in Tamil Nadu self-immolated. A separatist Dravidian movement came up. Tamilians tried to root out Sanskritic words from Tamil, an impossible task given the close and ancient exchanges. Similarly, in the north, bias and prejudices exist, leading to pro-Hindi counter-protests. As a result of this imbroglio, English has been retained. Some states, like Uttar Pradesh, use their regional language as their official language. Violent attitudes and prejudice also exist between sister languages such as Urdu and Hindi. The two are almost the same language but written in different scripts. When the Mughals ruled in India from the 16th century, Persian was the language of the court. When Persian and Arabic words mingled with Hindi, mostly in soldiers' camps, Urdu was formed. Urdu then replaced Persian as the language of the later Mughal court. Over time, Urdu came to be identified with the Muslims and Hindi with the Hindus. This difference sharpened after the partition of India, with Pakistan adopting Urdu as the official language and India Hindi. When Muslims and Hindus meet, they use a common lingua franca called Hindustani, a comfortable combination of Hindi and Urdu. But purists have been busy trying to isolate pure Hindi from pure Urdu. The result is that the common man is left without understanding either. Men from the older generation in Punjab and Uttar Pradesh wrote in Nastaliq and women in Devanagari. So there were times when husbands and wives could not write to each other. Sometimes Urdu speakers make a mockery of Hindi, calling it an effeminate language. In 1994, there were riots in Bangalore when a regular Urdu TV news broadcast was suggested. Similarly, in September 1989, there were riots in Badaयूं when Urdu became the second language of Uttar Pradesh. In all the strife, English, spoken by only 3 to 5% of the total population, has emerged the winner, with the best education and highest paid jobs available almost exclusively to them. The non-English speakers, who constitute an overwhelming majority, are therefore at a significant disadvantage. No solution has been found to right the balance, though increasing numbers are striving to learn English and various formulas are being tried. In the meantime, Indians need to appreciate the historic connections and understand that deriding the language of other regional groups is of no real help. The different, often inaccurate perceptions are from closed minds. Will they ever open up?